Facepalm America. I'm Beowulf Rockland. FacepalmAmerica.com is where you can always go to get more information on the program, to listen to past episodes, to connect with us on social media, all those good things that are wonderful for you to do. By the way, if you happen to enjoy this program, and I'll say it again at the end of the show, if you're able to rate and review us on those platforms which allow you to do so, Apple Podcasts and Spotify included, we would be much obliged to you. It helps grow the program. And as our guest today always says with regard to his program Around the Political World with John Rothman, it helps grow our base. And you should do the same with his program, too. John Rothman, welcome to Facepalm America. Thank you so much for being here.
And thank you for the plug.
I hope you have been having a wonderful holiday season. I know my family and I have been, and it certainly has not been slowing down with regard to events around the political world to discuss.
Have you noticed that?
I have. Yeah, it's strange. I know a repeated theme of yours throughout your career is it certainly will be interesting to talk about. And there's always the modern age has provided wonders in terms of discussion fodder, and
who knows? We may both rot in hell the way things are.
We may rot in hell, according to Donald Trump, because his enemies, according to a message that he gave on Christmas Day, on the good Christian that he is, he has told his enemies that may they rot in hell. Monday afternoon, again, Merry Christmas. Donald Trump kept his tradition of inspiring Christmas messages alive on Monday, Christmas, with a lengthy rant calling out crooked Joe Biden and deranged Jack Smith and those who are looking to destroy our once great USA. May they rot in hell. May I be very clear? Please.
I would rather rot in hell with you than be in heaven with Donald Trump.
Yes, I think it raises questions about if his career to this point has not already about which direction he may be going in the long run. It's, my goodness, I mean, we know so many things about this man. We know so many things about the indictments. We know so many things about the bases for the two impeachments that he went through when he was president. But it just brings us back to the fundamental, I want to say, vulgarity of the man. Certainly his refusal to come towards anything like social nicety. And, it's just reemphasized to me during the holiday season. Would I expect anything different? Not really, but it just brings me back to the fact that by any Trump supporters out there, and I understand there are reasons you may come to that place, but be reminded, this is the kind of individual whom you are supporting.
I had dinner last night, Christmas night, with a man who wouldn't call himself a Trump supporter, but would vote for Trump, most assuredly.
Right.
And I asked him, how do you overlook all of this? He said, you can't take Trump seriously. You just have to laugh
You just have to vote for him for president. You can't take him seriously.
And that to me is the ultimate, I just found it incomprehensible. Anyway, let's move on to something else.
Well, here's something serious that he did. And this occurred before Christmas, but after we spoke last. And that's the fact that, yet again, separate from what he has been indicted for, charged with thus far, Trump was recorded pressuring Wayne County canvassers in the state of Michigan after the election not to certify the 2020 vote. Then presidential candidate Donald Trump personally pressured two Republican members of the Wayne County Board of Canvassers not to sign the certification of the 2020 presidential election, according to recordings reviewed by the Detroit News and revealed publicly for the first time.
I want you to emphasize that. Recordings.
Yes.
Not made up nonsense.
Yes.
Recordings in his own voice.
Yeah, he is on tape, just as he did in the state of Georgia when he was talking to Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger and he was pressuring him. Then he was doing the same thing in Michigan.
But Beowulf, don't you understand? He was just joking. He doesn't really mean it. Why, Beowulf, ye of little faith.
It's amazing. It's like Schrodinger's cat. When he wants it to be serious, then it's serious. When he wants it to be a joke, it's a joke. It morphs into any particular meaning that he wants to put into it. So it doesn't really matter, and that's the problem with Donald Trump fundamentally.
Well, we'll see whether Mr. Smith, in his indictment, will raise the question of this latest recording. Well, I hope he does.
I hope so. I
think a pattern. And let me make one other thing clear. No president, no person should be above the law. And I believe that in the end, the Supreme Court, if it follows the law, if it follows the precedent of Richard Nixon's case, it will indeed find that Donald Trump is not above the law, and that will open him to far more pressure in terms of suits than he can imagine. So, these are all things that will fall into place. I would also be remiss, I think since last we were here, Rudy Giuliani going into bankruptcy.
Yes.
The
my goodness.
Fall of America's mayor. But the fact is, he defamed a mother and her daughter who were election workers. They were nothing special, except they were part of the special aspect of American politics, where anybody can contribute and help. And the fine against Rudy Giuliani, if I may make a bad pun, is a fine thing. But the real villain here is Donald Trump. And yes. I'm sure that Rudy Giuliani, in the back of his mind, believes when Trump is president, he'll be pardoned. He'll be exonerated. And I think the tragedy here is, well, there's all this talk about Giuliani. There should be a lot of talk about Donald Trump and his role in all of this. For without Trump, nothing would have been uncovered or made known to people.
Absolutely.
There is a villain here, and people need to understand that.
It's interesting, speaking of pardons, Jim Acosta of CNN, I think, recently brought up the idea of pardons by Trump and brought up how that occurred in the case of Richard Nixon and how he was pardoned by Gerald Ford. And you got to be thinking in the back of all the minds of all these people, be it Meadows or Giuliani or Ellis or whoever it happens to be, that they're just keeping their fingers crossed and hoping that if the big guy manages to get back in there, that they're going to be home free and it'll be their get out of jail free card. Kind of
but
literally.
Not if they've turned against Trump. Trump is a bitter.
That's true. That's true. Jenna Ellis has basically turned against Trump at this point. I don't know if Meadows has done it so far. Giuliani.
Well, we don't know what Meadows has done. We only know that Meadows is going to be called to the stand. And the other person is Mike Pence. Mike Pence is really the person, if I were Donald Trump, that I would be worried about, because Mike Pence is the one who really witnessed, saw, and was a victim of what happened on January 6th. By the way, I just finished reading Romney Reckoning, which is absolutely brilliant, and I recommend it to everyone. And I'm now reading Adam Kinzinger's book,
excellent,
which is equally brilliant. And I'm waiting now. I should be receiving my copy of Liz Cheney's book because I want to understand from the inside what's going on. And you will note there are no such books that really make a case for Donald Trump. The insiders, the people who supported him, the people who are Republicans, are the ones who are writing these books and telling these tales. And if I were running the Democratic campaign, I'd have each one of Donald Trump's chiefs of staff, his Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, in the first administration. I would have all of them on television commercials explaining why Donald Trump should never be in the White House again, along with Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger and all of the other responsible Republicans.
Rex Tillerson is a very interesting case because I haven't heard hide nor hair from him since he left office, and I can imagine that there are a lot of very interesting things that he's heard. He's managed to stay out of the public spotlight so far, but if it comes down to it, there happens to be a connection to one of these cases, I don't know if there is, but I would be very interested to hear what he has to say, because
I want to throw in one other thing. I know you have a lot of things you want to cover. Sure. I just want to point out that the House and the Senate are now in recess.
Yes.
How can they be in recess when the world is aflame? Not only do you have the Gaza situation, not only do you have now American troops being under attack and ordered by the President of the United States to respond back to the Iranian forces that are responsible in Iraq and Syria. You have the crisis on the border, which is a crisis, which and neither Republicans nor Democrats can solve because no one knows how to solve it. And I'm not sure there is a real solution, which is a terrible thing to say. And on top of all of that, we have the changes in climate taking place globally, which are manifestly the most dangerous existential threat to humanity. And no one talks about that because I want to remind you of something, Beowulf. You can't raise a problem if you're a politician unless you can solve the problem. There's
That's
no
right.
point raising it if you can't solve it, because otherwise you're a complete waste.
And what are the problems that they are raising, that they have raised so far, even though they are out of session? The House of Representatives, they're going to impeach Joe Biden. They're looking into impeaching Joe Biden, and they're desperately searching for a reason to do so because thus far, with all the investigation that they've done and digging into Hunter Biden and Hunter Biden's laptop and all sorts of supposed improprieties, they have not come up with one shred of evidence indicating high crimes or misdemeanors on the part of Joe Biden. It's like they have absolutely nothing. It's a complete political ploy, and they don't even have the votes to at this point to bring an impeachment forward. They're just doing the inquiry so that they can say, oh, they're going after Biden in order to throw red meat to their right wing. It's disgusting.
It's very sad, but it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Remember, we were only 20 days away from the Iowa caucuses.
Yeah.
And if you believe the polls, Donald Trump is going to sweep Iowa. If you believe the polls, that will be the end of Ron DeSantis.
Yes, that's
If
right.
Nikki Haley comes in second, she has a shot in New Hampshire. But New Hampshire and South Carolina are highly problematic. If Trump wins New Hampshire and South Carolina, which I would remind you is Nikki Haley's home state and base, that would be the end of her campaign.
Yeah.
I think Ron DeSantis is now a footnote to history. I think he will be overwhelmingly defeated. And you know what? I could be wrong, but I don't think so, not based on what we're hearing and seeing.
Yeah.
So the dynamic of American politics next year, and I would remind you that the next year is in less than a week, is something that we are going to be talking about and confronting. And I want to express my appreciation. We're recording this on Tuesday, and we will do that again next week because it's January 1st. But I'm delighted, Beowulf, that you have made time for us to continue this discussion on a day other than Monday.
Well, no, and thank you as well for adapting in terms of the schedule. It's interesting. I could see, as unlikely as I think it is, I could see a scenario in which Ron DeSantis loses the Iowa primary, which he's almost certain to do.
Caucus.
The
Iowa
caucus. Thank you very much. And say he comes in third, he drops out at that point, and enough of his support goes to Haley, who is getting closer in New Hampshire to Donald Trump. And if she either wins or even comes fairly close to Donald Trump and then moves on to South Carolina, I could see a scenario in which she could potentially build up enough momentum. Now, am I sanguine that will be the case? Not particularly, but I can envision something actually happening that way, and that would be fascinating to discuss in the first half of 2024.
Well, I can't wait. Listen, 20 days from now, we will have the South Carolina primary, or rather the Iowa caucuses, and then followed by the South Carolina primary. And if Nikki Haley can't carry her own state, she's finished.
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting scenario. DeSantis, by the way, is so far behind in Florida. It's just pathetic for the man who's the governor of the state. If you lose your own state, it's very hard to be taken seriously as a presidential candidate. So those are things that we will be looking for.
I think we are seeing in Ron DeSantis the next president of the Heritage Foundation or something similar.
Well, let me also, just because we better touch on foreign policy for a moment, the decision by President Biden to respond to the attack on American soldiers in Iraq is a very serious one on two levels. One, it shows the intensity of the unrest in the Middle East is growing. But number two, remember, our troops are in Iraq at the invitation of the Iraqi government. And they're not happy with the fact that we struck in Iraq. So Joe Biden is caught on the horns of a great dilemma. And the Israelis are making clear that they intend to continue in Gaza until Hamas is broken. And despite the horrific tragedy